So I want to talk about musical chairs, and not the fun children's game, but the American economy, which is based off of that game. Which you might say, okay, that's a fun game, but maybe that's like not the way to structure an economy. And I'd agree. That's why I'm making the video. And then you might also say, what are you talking about? That's not how our economy is structured. I think it is, and I'll explain it to you. And so musical chairs, people know, at the end of the game, there's a lot of people that play musical chairs, but by the end of the game, there's only one person sitting in a chair. And so the kind of like the main concept of the game is that there's necessarily always going to be more people wanting chairs than there are chairs. And so if it's like a competitive game, fair enough, you'd have to have a winner or a loser. But like, do you want to have winners or losers in society, in the economy necessarily? I would say probably not, especially when we're like entering like a post-scarcity type of world where we have more efficient production and machines that can manufacture dozens or hundreds or thousands of times more items and food and whatever it is than our ancestors could a couple hundred years ago, hoeing potatoes in the field one at a time. Well, now we have giant tractors that can produce all that, which would mean kind of in theory that like if those resources were distributed well, that like all those 100 farmers that were hoeing potatoes to get the potatoes that the one tractor man can get now, like they should have more leisure time and they should have more wealth because the production is higher and there should be less poverty and there should be more kind of egalitarian lifting of all boats within the rising tide of our economy. Not necessarily the case, because instead what we decided to do is structure the economy based on a children's game of musical chairs. And so I think people understand that like most of the jobs in the world at this point are like, well, I don't know most of the jobs. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but like most of people know what managers are. Like managers are like if you want to work hard so you can be a manager. So you start out at a job and you pick up boxes or you bag clothes or put things in the supermarket. Start out at or you work at Walmart, whatever it is. You start out at a job and then eventually like you want to be a manager. Well, what do managers do? They manage people. I don't know exactly how. Well, I've been managers. I've managed a lot of people. I don't know if most managers manage as many people as I've managed, man. But let's say each manager manages 10 people. So then there's like 10 people that want to be a manager. Well, 9 of them just necessarily are never going to be able to be managers. Now, what the libertarians and the conservatives might say is, okay, they'll never be managers, but they're getting valuable experience so that later, I mean, they won't be managers now, but like later on they could have, that education could help them get better job. But it's like, doesn't change the fact that here we have this one position that needs these people underneath it. If these people aren't underneath it, this position won't exist. So for this position to exist, there has to be people underneath it. But it's like, okay, the mid-level, you're not even mid-level, you're the first manager. Then you have like the store manager, so there's a manager above you. Then you have, let's say like Walmart, for instance, so you have a store manager. He manages 10 regular managers. Maybe you'd only manage 5, but just for the example. So then there's like 100 people, each of those 10 managers, for each store manager. There has to be, and then there's a regional manager. He manages 10 stores. And so there would have to be 1,000 employees for each one regional manager. And each of those employees, obviously the economy is complex. There's other sectors as well. But like, just keep it simple for the purpose of this example. Each one of those employees are like going after, like, they're like, if I work hard, potentially I could be a regional manager like this person. And then there's a person above him who might be an actual executive or senior executive. And then there's board of directors and then CEO. By the time you get to CEO, which is one CEO for something like Walmart, I don't know how many people they employ. They employ a lot of people, let's say 1 million people, maybe probably more actually, but let's just say 1 million people. Well, and then the CEO will say things like, I started out when I'm, working hard, and he'll say things like that. He'll talk like that. He's not a very smart guy. And that's why I intentionally sound like an idiot sometimes, to sound like other people. But he'll like say like, you could be like me, other 1 million people below. Well, one of you could, and one of you will in this example because it's a closed system. But there's going to be another million people that are going to necessarily have to not be like you in order for that to be the case. And it's like, is that the way to structure society? Maybe it's a necessary reality for having systems like that. But I would argue if that is the case, then it should be like imperative that the million people that are necessary in order for that system to continue are not getting paid minimum wage while the CEO is paid billions and billions of dollars. And, accumulating along with the other small number of people in his class, most of the resources which are produced by the million people below the working class of the world, which is absolutely necessary as it's essential, as the recent pandemic showed, with the essential workers being the ones that are the lowest paid because they're doing all the essential work that these other really highly paid positions would not exist without their labor for. In the post-scarcity world, we should probably make sure that those necessary millions, the mass of people, are getting at least a pretty fair slice of the accumulated wealth. Instead, that's not happening. The socialization continues to be cut, and the income inequality continues to get wider and wider, and that causes a lot of social ruckus itself, you might have noticed. And to say nothing of the outcomes that it has to the mass of people and their families. And so I would argue probably shouldn't model society off of a children's game in terms of how things are to be done. Like, we live in the world, we have space satellites shooting lasers at the moon right now. I don't know. I'm not as smart. This is why I could never be a CEO. I don't know how to do these things. But that's the thing. They're not making those even them. They're using the labor of people in the middle of society, like engineers and stuff, in order to make these new products, which are amazing and generating a lot of wealth. Maybe not in terms of laser rockets. Actually, yeah, but they probably make money off that. But they're not the ones doing the labor, even in that instance. But they're accumulating the wealth. But we should probably not have a society where that's the case. When we have the ability to do such amazing things like that, but we can't get past the mindset of a kind of feudalistic children's chair game for how to distribute the resources. And, just something to think about. Probably not a super stable system in the long term. And we'll see if my thesis is correct in the next years and decades, and if I am right, then nobody will know about it because we have nuclear weapons and manipulate genomes and do lots of things that could destroy ourselves if we can't stabilize it. So probably should stop the children stuff.